Hello, welcome to another video. This is a rules review on this boy here, Skirmish Sangin, which I've been playing probably since about 2014. It was out a little bit before then. The development was a little bit prior to that, and I got talking to Colin Phillips, who was one of the designers over in New Zealand. And he actually came to Salute in 2014 to put a demo game on, which I was lucky enough to be down there in 2014, so I took part in it. This system, really, to be honest, is it's very obviously been a work of joy for the authors. The level of detail and the production quality is second to none. You'll obviously see when we go down to the bench and I'll have a flick through the rules. Really well produced, some superb photos in, excellent diagrams, clear text, and there's some really good sort of flowcharts diagrams on how the rules work, which are brilliant. What I would say is Skirmish Sangin works best. It's low level skirmish, so to my mind you're looking at fire team level, so maybe there's a couple of fire teams aside, maybe there's a section, so 10 to 15 figures per side works well. The reason I say that is that basically you activate each figure individually and you decide what you're going to do with them. So anything more figure wise than that, although the system can cope with it, it'll work, it tends to really slow it down and it takes a lot longer. Obviously, as the title suggests, it's designed for skirmish wargaming, modern Afghanistan. Having said that, it's very easy to alter it to any sort of modern setting post World War II, really, to be perfectly honest. The nuts and bolts of the system work really well, and it's just a case of adding sort of period or location flavour to alter it. I've used it for a number of different scenarios in different theatres, and it's worked absolutely fine. I got my copies of download, the do hard copies. I'll put a link in the description to the Skirmish Sangin site. They do a few other things and some other rule systems. I also believe that this is in the process of getting a second edition. However, to my mind, it's going to have to be going some to improve on this, because it's really well done, really well done. So what we'll do now is we'll go down to the bench and we'll have a flick through it. So folks, Skirmish Sangin, as I mentioned a little bit about it in the introduction, this really is me go-to system for low-level skirmish, anything really from World War II onwards. It works really well. I would qualify that by saying it is definitely low-level skirmish, so you're looking at the fire team level, maybe 8 to 12 figures per side, that sort of level. It works basically you're deciding what to do with every individual figure when they're activated. So obviously at the platoon level, it works. You can still do that, however it really slows down. Still gives an excellent game, but it takes much longer. So for what it does really well, to be honest, it's perfect. This I got as a download, and obviously I had it bound, and we'll just go through it, and I'll pick up the salient points as we go through it. What I would say, and it becomes self-evident as you go through the book, is that the high quality of production and the design of the book. There's some really tip-top photographs in it throughout, which you'll see as we go through. So basically goes on to the contents in the introduction. Example there, absolutely cracking, stonking photograph. The introduction goes into the type of wargaming it is, which is a sort of skirmish with a strong narrative element. There's also a brief history of the conflict in Afghanistan. So I mentioned at the beginning, this is designed around Afghanistan. However, you can quite easily transfer it to sort of multiple theatres without a massive amount of problems. Again, playing the game, that's quite a nice, interesting little chapter on what the scale is. Scale-wise, they recommend 28mm figures, which is perfect, really. On the table, an inch represents 2 meters, so the ground scale basically is equal to the figure scale in 28mm, if that makes sense. So weapons, basically, even if you've got a 6x4 table, everything's going to be within range. It's only a very small area that the table actually represents. Time as well. There's combat phase and combat rounds. Each combat round's got 10 combat phases, but I'll mention that later when we get a bit further into the sort of system. Done percentage rolling, really excellent. The next sort of section's on how to create a force, and he gives examples obviously for Afghanistan, so ISAF forces, Taliban forces. The most important stat in each sort of figure has a stat, and that's a body stat, which is basically that's the character's balance, agility, speed, toughness, deftness. So it's an overarching sort of attribute. You get that from they're recommending 1d10 plus a score of 10, and that'll give you obviously a range of figures from probably about 11 up to a maximum of 20. It then goes on to describe the morale system, which is sort of fairly standard: novice, average, veteran, elite. There's modifications for NCOs and officers. So this is the system in relation to creating a force, covered in quite some detail, which is always good. Obviously, you don't have to use that. You can build them up yourself, and it gives examples of obviously ISAF forces, and then going on to the opposition, which is obviously the Taliban and insurgent forces. All good stuff, done really well. So to be honest, the first 44 pages of the book's basically an introduction to it. This is the meat and potatoes of the system, the combat system. And as I've said, the way it works is you have a combat round which is divided into 10 combat phases, depending on the score of your body score. That allows you that shows you in which phase you're going to activate. So obviously higher scoring figures activate first. Some really nice decision sequence sort of guides. Example here, this column here is the shooting column. So it starts off: do you need to spot? Yes, go to spot. Add or subtract modifiers. Roll your D100. Success, it tells you what to do. Is it a critical? Unsuccessful tells you what to do. Is it a fumble? Tells you what to do. Really, really well done. Firearms combat sequence here. It's just beautifully laying out. Really, really good. There's a full spotting system, which obviously at this level you really need. Goes into all the various modifiers. Lots of nice illustrations throughout. Obviously full color. The shooting system's quite elegant. Basically, when you're activated, you have 3 activation points in each phase, which you can spend however you want. The qualifier to that is you're only allowed in each phase, you're only allowed to fire once, but you can do any of the other attributes, moving as many times as you have points for. In the shooting system, they have a thing called Snapfire, which is like an Overwatch system, which allows you to shoot out of turn if you see someone running in front of you. This works really well. and you're just effectively taking your turn slightly out of sequence. There's some qualifiers for that, but it all flows really well. Systems for grenades, underslung grenade launchers, how to throw them, fumble charts, where to go if you miss. There's a nice section on consciousness, and this is tied into the casualty system, which is really good. Morale works very well as well. Lots of good modifiers. Show of force, which is obviously relevant to insurgents only. It can really affect what you can do and how you can do it. There's a system on hand-to-hand combat, should it come to that, which again works really well. Nice system on heavy weapons, although at this scale, at the scale you're talking about, the majority of these are obviously going to be off table, but it does cover everything. The only thing to be sort of aware of is because the ground scale equals the figure scale in 28mm, some of the heavy weapons can be fairly devastating. Just as a basic example, something like a javelin missile fired, the target it hits, you've got a kill radius of 10 inches in diameter and then a damage radius of 40 inches in diameter. So obviously, if these are dropping anywhere near you, they're extremely, extremely devastating. Even going down to things like a 60mm mortar, which is quite small for a mortar, that's got a 5-inch diameter kill radius, 25-inch diameter damage radius. What that means is it's the level of dice you're rolling in a kill zone. For a 60mm mortar, as an example, you're rolling 4d10s. At the damage zone, you're only rolling 1d10. So I tend to be very careful with how I allocate heavy weapons because they can really, really dominate the combat zone. Full rules for it, in it, how to use it. Just loads and loads of the guys have done a massive amount of work on this, and it shows throughout the system. Nice system on critical hits and fumbles. This is what's happened if you get a firearms fumble, things like misfire, weapon jam, dust in your eyes, panic, negligent discharge. All works really, really well. There's also a system on vehicles and vehicle combat, which is excellent. Haven't used it a couple of times, but to my mind, it works really, really well for the for just infantry level small scale skirmishers. There are some advanced rules where you have things like ISAF rules, sniper teams, where you come off obviously all from off table, helicopters, air power, Taliban mortar teams, sniper teams, technicals, IEDs on the battlefield, and it then goes into a game example, which is really useful. Just done to a really, really high level. There are some scenarios, all sort of quite low level stuff, work really well. It works absolutely spot on. At the end, some really good quick reference sheets, very well organized, lovely graphics, really, really well done. And that's basically rounded off. Obviously, at the end, there's some charts to download to fill in with your troops, and that basically rounds it off. And some markers. As a system, personally speaking, cannot fault it. If you like detailed, low-level skirmish systems, it'll cover basically any, although it sails for modern Afghanistan, with some tweaking, it can cover any sort of modern engagement at the lower level, so at the fire team level. Really, really recommended. Right, so there we have Skirmish Sangin. As normal, any queries, questions, suggestions, drop me a message and I'll do my best to answer it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and like it. If you're not already a subscriber, think about subscribing. You can do it from the main channel page. Alternatively, at the end of the video, in the bottom right hand corner, you can click on the little button, which is an Empress 28mm modern British infantryman. Let us know if you're happy with the way I do the rules reviews. I'm conscious I don't want to go into masses of detail, because obviously that makes the video would make it a lot longer if I went into all the minutiae of the rules. Having said that, there's for people who watch this, I know you watch Little Wars TV, and they have quite a clever system of rating their reviews, scoring them, and I was sort of wondering whether I should use something similar, or perhaps speak to them to see if they have got an issue with me using the same system effectively. So that's something for certainly for the future. So what will, as normal at the moment, with the house move still progressing, I'll try and drop a showcase video in every Monday, and the other stuff I'll intersperse between those. So once again, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.